Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're doing something a little dangerous.
Dangerous is definitely the right word, yeah.
We are staging a collision, a kind of philosophical cage match, if you will.
I like that.
In the blue corner, we have the modern titan of global finance, Mark Carney, former governor of the Bank of England, the Bank of Canada. I mean, this is the man who literally wrote the book on value. It's called Value with the D's in parentheses.
Right. He's the architect of what he calls a new social contract designed to build a better, more sustainable world.
He is, for all intents and purposes, the high priest of the modern technocratic establishment.
I could have said it better myself.
And in the red corner, we have a figure from a century ago who, on the surface, could not be more different. The Austrian philosopher, esotericist, and founder of Anthroposophy, Rudolf Steiner.
The man who basically warned us that these high priests of materialism were on their way.
Exactly. So we've got a massive stack of source material in front of us. We have Carney's big manifesto, Value, Building a Better World for All.
It's a hefty book.
It is. And on the other side, we have the deep archives of Steiner's lectures, the GA archives. And we've pulled lectures covering everything from something he calls the threefold social order to a very strange archetype named Ferdinand Fox.
And our mission for this deep dive isn't just to, compare and contrast them like a high school essay.
Bro.
We're asking a very specific and I think very urgent question.
Which is?
Is Mark Carney the savior he presents himself to be? Is he really the man using the genius of the market to solve climate change and inequality? Or, when we look at him through Steiner's very particular, very unusual lens, is Carney the return of a specific historical warning? Is he, in fact, a new Woodrow Wilson building a beautiful but deeply deceptive control grid?
The new Woodrow Wilson. Now, for most people hearing that, that probably sounds like a compliment.
Of course.
Yeah, Wilson. He's the Nobel Peace Prize winner, the League of Nations guy. He's seen as this great idealist. But as I was digging through these Steiner lectures, I mean, specifically GA 176 and 177, it became incredibly clear that Steiner, well, he did not see Wilson as a hero.
That is putting it very, very mildly. Steiner saw Wilson as a genuine catastrophe for the human spirit, an absolute disaster.
Wow.
But to even begin to understand why Steiner had such a visceral reaction to Wilson, and more importantly, why that matters for how we look at Mark Carney today, we have to start with the mindset.
Yeah.
We can't start with the policies. We have to start with the type of intelligence that creates those policies. We have to talk about Ferdinand Fox.
I have to admit, when I saw Ferdinand Fox on our prep sheet, I really thought we were taking a weird turn into children's literature.
Hey, I get that. But no, this is a very specific term Steiner uses in his lectures on, of all things, etheric projection. It's from GA 147.
So who or what is Ferdinand Fox?
So Steiner uses Ferdinand Fox as a personification. He's not a literal animal. He represents a specific kind of human intelligence, a very modern, very clever kind of intelligence that Steiner labels Ahrimanic skepticism.
Okay, hang on. We have to pause right there.
Ahrimanic.
For anyone listening who hasn't, spent the last decade reading Steiner, we need to define that term. When Steiner says Ahriman, what are we actually talking about?
It's a great question because it's absolutely crucial. In Steiner's cosmology, evil isn't just this one monolithic thing. He sees it as having two, let's call them polarities or faces.
Okay.
One face is Luciferic. That's the force that's all about passion, emotion, escaping the material world into fantasy. It's hot, it's chaotic, it's ungrounded.
Right.
The other face is Ahrimanic. And Ahriman is the total opposite. He is cold. He is hyper-rational. He is the spirit of pure, dry, calculating materialism. He is the intelligence that demands physical, quantifiable proof for absolutely everything.
So Ahriman isn't the devil with a pitchfork and a pointy tail.
Not at all.
He's the guy in the lab coat holding a clipboard who says, if I can't measure it, weigh it, and put it on a graph, it simply does not exist.
Precisely. He is the god of the spreadsheet, the ultimate materialist. And Ferdinand Fox is the literary character Steiner uses to embody this spirit. He is, as Steiner describes him in GA 237, dazzlingly intelligent.
Dazzlingly.
He possesses logical conclusiveness and magnificent certainty. You can't argue with Ferdinand Fox on his own terms because his logic is a closed loop. It's perfect. But he is constitutionally blind to anything that isn't physical matter. Spirit, soul, value. These are just nonsense words to him.
And this is where we bring it back to Mark Carney, because when you read his book, Values, it's undeniable, it's brilliant, it's incredibly smart, logical, dense with economic theory, But you're arguing it's a Ferdinand Fox document.
I'm arguing it's the ultimate Ferdinand Fox document of our time.
Yeah.
Just look at Carney's central thesis. He starts with that famous Oscar Wilde quote that our market society knows the price of everything and the value of nothing.
Which sounds incredibly profound. It sounds like a critique of materialism, right?
Yeah.
He seems to be saying, hey, we've got it all wrong. The Amazon rainforest provides the air we breathe.
Yeah.
But on a corporate ledger, it's worth zero until you cut it down. This is insane.
Exactly. He identifies the problem perfectly, and it hooks you in because you agree. But then you have to look very, very closely at his solution.
Okay.
Does he say, we need a spiritual awakening to recognize the sacredness of the Amazon as a living being?
No.
No. He says we need to bring the Amazon into the market mechanism. We need to price it. We need to assign it a monetary value. We have to turn nature into natural capital and our communities and relationships into social capital.
So his solution to the problem that everything is about money is to make absolutely everything about money.
Yes. That is the Ahrimanic trap in its purest form. Ferdinand Fox looks at a cathedral and says, I can't see God, but I can calculate the tourism revenue, the cost of upkeep, the value of the real estate. He looks at a forest and says, I can't see the spirit of the tree, but I can calculate its utility as a carbon sequestration asset, so I will create a financial instrument to trade that utility.
You're quantifying the unquantifiable.
And in the very act of quantifying it, you kill it. You change its essential nature. Steiner, in that same lecture, GA 147, talks about the world being inhabited by living thought beings, by spiritual hierarchies. For him, nature is vibrantly alive.
But for Carney, the world is a balance sheet.
It's a global ledger.
Yeah.
He doesn't see the earth as Gaia, a living mother. He sees it as a service provider, an asset base. And his grand project is to create a global financial system where the utility of every part of that asset base is perfectly tracked, priced, managed, and controlled.
It's a totally closed loop. You mentioned that Steiner warned about the logical conclusiveness of Ahriman. Carney's system is, in theory, logically perfect. If you can price carbon emissions, and you can price social impact, and you can price biodiversity loss, then you can theoretically optimize human civilization like a giant planetary scale machine.
But a machine is, by definition, dead. And that is the core of the danger Steiner was trying to warn us about. If you treat the living world as a machine, you will, in the end, kill the living spirit within it.
And that mindset, that specific desire to manage the world from a high, abstract, expert-driven perspective, that's the bridge.
That's the bridge that takes us directly to the second part of our investigation, the historical parallel.
The Woodrow Wilson connection.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We are calling Mark Carney the new Woodrow Wilson. And as we mentioned at the top, Steiner really went after Wilson in the archives. I mean, GA 176, 177, 239, he just keeps coming back to it. He calls him the world schoolmaster.
Yeah.
Why that specific insult? What did he mean by world schoolmaster?
Well, just think about the archetype of a schoolmaster, or at least a bad one. He stands at the front of the classroom. He has his abstract theoretical curriculum. He's not really interested in the messy, chaotic living reality of each individual student's life or needs. He just wants the entire class to conform to the lesson plan, to the abstract ideal.
Everyone sit down, be quiet, and learn the 14 points.
Exactly. Steiner's central critique of Wilson was that the man was completely estranged from reality. Wilson looked at post-World War I Europe, this unbelievably complex, bloody, ancient tapestry of cultures, languages, hatreds, and histories, and he genuinely believed he could fix it all with a list, with 14 points.
Abstract ideals, national self-determination, open covenants of peace, a league of nations.
All things that sound wonderful on paper, but Steiner called them the 14 nonsenses.
That seems incredibly harsh. Weren't those points, weren't they trying to prevent future wars?
The intention sounded moral, and that is the absolute key to understanding the mechanism. Steiner says the world was intoxicated by Wilson's rhetoric because it sounded so high-minded and righteous. Who could argue against peace and self-determination?
Right. It's like arguing against puppies.
Exactly. But because those ideas were total abstractions, because they were cooked up in a Princeton study and not born from the living reality of the people on the ground, they were a disaster when applied. They created chaos. The new borders they drew all but guaranteed future conflicts. Steiner was adamant that Wilson's piece directly paved the way for the horrors of World War II.
So the core critique is that abstract idealism, when it's forced onto a complex living reality, doesn't just fail. It becomes actively destructive.
It becomes a tyranny of the ideal. And now, look at Mark Carney. Does he have 14 points?
Yeah, has net zero. He has ESG. He has his triple trinity of crises, health, climate, and identity.
And listen to the tone. Just read a chapter of value. It is the unmistakable tone of the world schoolmaster. Carney argues quite explicitly that the market can no longer be trusted to set values. The people, the chaotic, irrational market actors, are making the wrong choices. They're failing the exam. They're destroying the planet.
So who needs to step in?
The experts, of course. He constantly talks about the need for delegated authority.
And his favorite model for this is the central bank.
It's his paradise. Think about it. Central bankers are unelected technocrats. They are deliberately insulated from the messy whims of democratic voters. They get to pull the economic levers based on their superior understanding of complex models.
And Carney's argument is basically, we need to apply that model to everything.
Everything. He literally suggests we need carbon councils that would manage global climate goals with the same top-down authority that the Federal Reserve manages inflation.
That's a monumental shift in governance.
Yeah.
That is, in effect, saying that democracy is too slow, too messy, and frankly, too stupid to be trusted with saving the world.
Yes.
We need a global schoolmaster to step in and grade our homework for us.
It's a report card for civilization, and the grading system is already in place. ESG, Environmental, Social, and Governance Scores. That is the schoolmaster's tool. If a company, or soon an individual, doesn't get a passing grade on the schoolmaster's very specific, centrally defined criteria,
they don't get capital. They get financially exiled. They get sent to detention, or in this case, bankruptcy.
it's the ultimate control mechanism. And just like with Wilson, the rhetoric is intoxicating. The title of the book is Building a Better World for All. Who could possibly argue with that? It sounds so unimpeachably moral.
Steiner had a term for this, didn't he? He called it world philistinism, or empty rhetoric.
Yes, an idol with feet of clay. It's a beautiful, polished shell. It sounds like deep morality, but when you tap on it, it's hollow. Inside, it's just a cold, mechanical control grid. It's about replacing the individual living human conscience with a systemic, top-down algorithm.
And this brings us to the ultimate fear, right? That if Carney really is the new Wilson, he's not just repeating Wilson's mistake.
He's amplifying it on a global scale.
He's going to try to force the entire complex, living global economy onto a single spreadsheet,
Yeah.
net zero by 2050, come hell or high water, and in the process, he's not just going to break things.
Steiner would argue it's much worse than just breaking it. He's going to induce what he called a social carcinoma, a cancer.
A cancer, that is. That's a very strong word.
It's a medical diagnosis, and Steiner uses it very deliberately in his lectures, particularly in GA 336. And this brings us to what is probably the most complex, but also the most important part of Steiner's entire social philosophy, his concept of the threefold social order.
Right, okay, we absolutely need to break this down for the listener. I've read the source material on this, GA 24, GA 328, and it can get pretty dense pretty fast. How can we explain this simply?
The best way in is the analogy Steiner himself used, the human body. Think about your own body. You have a head system, your nerves and senses, you have a rhythmic system, your heart and lungs, and you have a metabolic system, digestion, in your limbs.
Okay, head, heart, and hands. Makes sense.
Right. They are three distinct autonomous systems. The brain doesn't tell the heart how to beat. The heart doesn't tell the stomach how to digest. They each have their own logic, their own principles, but they all work together to create a healthy living human.
Okay, I'm with you.
Steiner said a healthy society is an organism that works in exactly the same way. It must have three independent, autonomous spheres.
So what's sphere number one?
Sphere number one is the spiritual or cultural life. This is everything to do with the individual human spirit. Education, art, science, religion, journalism. Steiner insisted this sphere must be governed by one principle and one principle only: freedom.
Absolute freedom.
Absolute. The government cannot tell a university what to research. The economy cannot dictate what an artist creates. This is the realm of the free individual spirit.
Okay, sphere number two.
The rights life, or the state. This is politics, law, police, the military. This sphere must be governed by a different principle. Equality. We are all equal before the law. One person, one vote. This is the realm of democracy.
Got it. And the third sphere?
The economic life. Everything to do with producing, distributing, and consuming goods and services. Steiner said this sphere should be governed by a third distinct principle: fraternity, or what he also called association.
Brotherhood.
Exactly. It's about people freely associating to meet each other's needs. It's cooperative, not state-managed or purely profit-driven. So you have freedom in culture, equality in rights, and fraternity in the economy.
And the absolute golden rule is?
They must stay separate. They must remain autonomous.
What happens if they merge?
Catastrophe. If the state, the right sphere, tries to take over the economy, you get the tyranny of communism. If the economy, the corporate world, tries to buy and run the state, you get the tyranny of plutocracy. And if the state tries to dictate culture and tell everyone what to think and believe, well, you get totalitarian propaganda.
So each sphere has to respect the boundaries of the others. The heart supplies the brain with blood, but it doesn't try to do the thinking for it.
A perfect summary now. Take that blueprint for a healthy society and lay it directly over Mark Carney's vision and value as.
I'm guessing there's not a lot of overlap.
They are a perfect inversion. It is the exact diametrical opposite. Carney explicitly argues that this very separation is the source of all our problems. His whole project is about merging them.
How so?
He calls it mission-oriented capitalism. He says the state, the right sphere, must set the mission, for example, net zero by 2050.
Right.
Then the market, the economic sphere, must be marshaled and directed to execute that state-mandated mission. And the culture, our values, our education, our media must be brought into alignment to support that mission.
So he wants to collapse all three independent spheres into one giant unified block.
He uses words like integration and alignment. He champions public-private partnerships. He wants a single, unitary approach to solve the world's problems.
And this is what Steiner called a social cancer.
It is the literal definition of it. Because in a biological organism, when one organ system begins to grow into and take over the function of another, when lung tissue starts invading the liver, that's what a tumor is. It dysregulates, it breaks boundaries, and it kills the host organism. Carney is proposing a system where our values, which Steiner says must be absolutely free, are dictated by a state mission and enforced by economic power.
That's the part that's truly terrifying to me.
Mm-hmm.
Under the threefold model, my values are my own business. They belong to the free cultural sphere.
Yes.
Under Carney's model, my values, as measured by my carbon footprint or my social media posts, could literally determine my credit score.
And your access to the economy. It is the weaponization of the economic sphere to enforce conformity in the cultural sphere. If you don't hold the correct values on climate, on equity, on whatever the mission of the day is, values defined by the expert schoolmasters, you can be deplatformed, demonetized, debanked. You become an economic exile.
It's a total inversion of the healthy order. Steiner wanted the economy to be a servant, to simply produce goods to meet human needs.
Yes.
Carney wants the economy to be the master, a tool for mass social engineering.
And that is precisely why Steiner warned that this kind of unitary state always leads to tyranny. And not just political tyranny, but a deeper spiritual tyranny. Because there is no longer any space left for the human being to be free. If you can't buy food because your social value score is too low, then your spirit is not free. It is in a cage.
Which really begs the biggest question of all. Why? Why is this happening? Is Mark Carney just a well-intentioned guy with a fundamentally flawed philosophical map?
No.
Or is there something deeper at play here?
I think so.
And this is where we have to go to the fourth part of our deep dive. This is where we talk about the occult mechanism.
Yeah. This is where we officially leave the pages of The Economist magazine and really enter the deep water.
Because Steiner wasn't just a social philosopher or an educational reformer. He was an esotericist, a clairvoyant. He claimed he could perceive the spiritual forces moving behind the curtain of history. And in lectures like GA 194 and GA 236, he talks about what's really going on behind these impulses coming out of the West.
He does. He speaks very frankly about background forces and secret brotherhoods. He makes the remarkable claim that while modern nations may look like republics or democracies on the surface, they are often steered by small, initiated groups with a very long-term agenda. He refers to them as Western lodges.
And he connects them to what he calls the Anglo-Saxon chieftain impulse. This deep, driving impulse to dominate the world, not through military might necessarily, but through economics, through trade and materialism.
And Mark Carney could not be a more perfect embodiment of that lineage. I mean, Goldman Sachs, Bank of Canada, Bank of England, UN Special Envoy for Climate Action. He is the archetype of the modern Anglo-American financier.
But Steiner says the ultimate goal of these groups isn't just about accumulating wealth or power.
No, that's just the means to an end. The ultimate goal is what he calls the Ahrimanic initiation.
What does that mean practically?
It means creating a human civilization that is so purely material, so perfectly logical, so completely mechanized and quantified that the human soul forgets that it is a spiritual being. It's about using, as he says in GA 197, human cleverness to destroy human civilization. It's about trapping humanity in its own brilliant logical creations.
There's another fascinating concept from Steiner that fits in here perfectly. He called it government by journalism.
Yes, from GA 184. It's an incredible prophecy. He says that in the modern age, you don't need to rule people with whips and chains. You can rule them much more effectively with words, with rhetoric. You rule them by constantly shaping their perception of reality through the press and media.
And Carney is an absolute master of rhetoric. The language he uses is so carefully chosen. Resilience, sustainability, inclusion, stakeholder capitalism. These words are like a kind of spell.
Steiner literally calls it a hypnotic spell. You hear a word like sustainability and your brain just nods along. You think, of course that's good. You don't stop to ask, wait, does sustainability in this context mean a central bank digital currency that tracks and controls my every purchase to manage my carbon footprint? The soft, moral-sounding rhetoric is designed to put the critical mind to sleep so the chains can be quietly forged.
That triple trinity of crises he talks about, health, climate, identity, it sounds almost religious.
It is a new religion. It's a religion of the earth, but a very specific version of earth. An earth without a spirit. An earth that is just natural capital. And this leads us to what is, for me, the single darkest and most chilling passage we pulled from the Steiner archives.
The vaccine against the soul?
Yes.
I remember reading this in GA 177. It's genuinely bone-chilling. Steiner predicts that a time will come when the materialistic worldview becomes so completely dominant that any kind of spiritual thinking will be treated as a form of sickness.
He says, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it's very close, a time will come when they will find a way to inoculate the body so that it cannot develop the inclination towards spiritual ideas. They will invent a vaccine, he uses that word, that makes the very idea of a soul or a spirit seem like a pathological symptom.
Now, to be absolutely clear for the listener, Mark Carney is not out there proposing we inject people with some kind of anti-soul serum.
No, not in a physical, literal sense, of course not. But look at the financial and social architecture he's building. One could argue he's building a system that acts as a kind of vaccine against the spirit.
How do you mean?
By defining value itself in exclusively material, quantifiable, and utilitarian terms. If you build a world where every tree, every human relationship, every hour of community labor, every creative idea is tracked, priced, logged on a distributed ledger, and valued only insofar as it contributes to the mission of net zero, you have built a world where there is literally no room left for the unmeasurable.
No room for the invisible.
No room for grace. No room for the unpredictable spark of human genius. No room for the divine.
You've essentially suffocated the soul with data.
Exactly. And if the soul cannot breathe in the atmosphere of the society you have constructed, you will inevitably create generations of human beings who are, for all intents and purposes, automata. Intelligent, efficient, productive, sustainable, but hollow. Empty shells. And that is the ultimate Ahrimanic dream. A perfectly functioning world of beautiful, intelligent machines.
And Carney's vision of a circular economy where there's no waste, where everything is perfectly reused and recycled. From Steiner's perspective, that could be seen as a kind of spiritual closed loop, a prison where nothing new, nothing from a higher world can ever enter.
That is the ultimate danger. The hidden hand, the Pilgrims Society, whatever name you want to give that impulse Steiner identified. The goal is to use the constant drumbeat of Crisis Carney's Triple Trinity as the justification to lock this system into place before humanity has a chance to wake up to what's being lost.
Never let a good crisis go to waste.
It's the playbook. Carney explicitly frames these crises as the very reason why we must surrender our freedoms, why we must abandon the threefold separation, and accept the benevolent guidance of the expert schoolmasters.
So, we've painted a pretty stark, pretty bleak picture here. We have Mark Carney as the new Woodrow Wilson, using the hyper-clever Ferdinand Fox intelligence to build a better world for all. That, through this lens, looks an awful lot like a gilded spiritual cage.
A very comfortable, very sustainable, very inclusive cage. But a cage nonetheless.
So what's the way out? Steiner didn't just deal in prophecies of doom and gloom. He always offered a solution, a path forward.
He did. He said we are standing at a threshold, we face a choice. We can either continue to sleepwalk into the schoolmaster reality hypnotized by the empty rhetoric, or we can be in the hard work of developing what he called concepts that match reality.
And what does that mean in practical terms?
It means waking up to the fundamental deception of Ferdinand Fox. It means consciously refusing to accept the premise that everything must have a price in order to have value. It means making the effort to look at a tree and see a living, spiritual being, not just a carbon offset credit.
And on a social or political level?
It means fighting tooth and nail for the separation of the spheres. It means resisting the mission economy. It means demanding that the state stay out of culture and that the economy be put back in its proper place as a servant to genuine human needs, not as a tool for political and social engineering.
It sounds like we need to be a little less resilient in the way Carney defines it, and a lot more
Well,
human.
we have to consciously choose to value what cannot be counted. That is the only real antidote to the Ahrimanic impulse. You will never outcalculate a supercomputer. You can only outhuman it.
I think the final provocation for you, the listener, really boils down to the definition of a better world. Carney's subtitle is Building a Better World for All.
But after this deep dive, we have to ask, better for whom and by what measure? Is it a world that's better for the Ferdinand Fox intellect that craves a tidy, predictable, perfectly managed spreadsheet? Or is it a world that's better for the messy, unpredictable, often irrational, but ultimately sacred, striving human spirit?
It really does come down to that, doesn't it? The ledger or the living spirit. Mark Carney and the system he represents offer us the ledger. It's safe, it's sustainable, it's net zero, it's approved by all the top experts. But the price of admission might just be the very thing that makes life worth living in the first place.
And as Ferdinand Fox would say with a cold little smirk, prove you have a spirit, show me the data. The ultimate danger is that in the system Carney is building, if you can't prove it on the balance sheet, it doesn't exist.
A terrifying thought to end on, but a necessary one. This has been the deep dive into Mark Carney and the architecture of deception.
Right.
We'll let you decide if you want to buy what the new Woodrow Wilson is selling.